Cups up, guys. The first thing I want to discuss, though, is Judge Bentley Price, who was removed by the JMSC insofar as he was not reelected. They did not advance his application. And he is, the reason for that was because of the favors that he supposedly gives to lawyer legislators, right? Mm-hmm. And a couple of the arguments that I've had behind the scenes with people who really believe that Judge Price was a detriment to justice in the Charleston area. And we're seeing it ourselves. Mandy and I saw an article this weekend in the Post and Courier about, I believe it was a rape case that he allowed this guy out on bond, even though this guy had already had a sexual assault on his record and I think was out on bond or had committed it while he was out on bond for something else. I don't understand how we can look at this one judge and say, we're going to hold you accountable for your behavior. But all these other judges who have had similar issues, or worse, in Carmen Mullen's case of accusations against her, how are we not holding her accountable?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen and I've heard from a few lawyers legitimate problems with Bentley Price, specifically with the way that he treats victims. I've heard some disturbing stories in that matter. However, I'm with you. Like, I really get annoyed whenever they have a sacrificial lamb in a scenario like this, and it's like they all pretend like they're doing the thing, and they just take one, slaughter it, and move on. And instead of actually, that doesn't create any change. As long as there's other judges that are doing the same thing or worse, nothing's ever going to change, and they have to hold them all accountable. I mean,
a couple years ago, it was Tommy Russo who was terminated and didn't get renewed because he was posting some, far right support of the MAGA and Trump and things on his Facebook page that the public felt that a judge should stay out of politics, and he was on the bench for a long time. So it seems like they trim the hedges every couple of years. You get a little bit of a trimming, but not really a full cut. I think we need more sunlight on it, and we're not getting it.
What I'd like to see is, and Eric, I don't know if you have special access to this in any way, but I would love to see how members of the JMSC fare in front of judges so that we could see, like, their motions. Do their motions get denied regularly? Do their motions get granted regularly by certain judges? That would be
Do they get a hearing when they want a hearing? Do they get a continuance when they need a continuance? You know what I'm saying?
I just feel like, so let's look at it this way. Could we suggest to the JMSC, like, okay, you guys don't want to change, but how about you do this instead? How about the members who are legislators, who are lawyers on your commission? How about you guys publish your stats in front of certain judges?
I will tell you this, guys, and I've appeared before many, 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 many circuit court judges. You don't hear about those judges because they, by and large, are very good judges. They are diligent. They're beyond reproach. They take their job seriously. They read what is before them. You only hear about the outliers. You heard about Carmen Mullen. You heard, I guess it was Mark Lee Dennis in the Orangeburg case, right? Wasn't he the one in, what's the name of that case? I'm sorry.
Bowen Turner.
You heard about Bentley Price, but you never hear anything about Daniel Hall because Daniel Hall is just a hardworking, diligent judge. Over the past couple weeks, Will's been taking pot shots at me, and FitzNews has, and I sometimes I let it go, sometimes I don't. I take the bait and I respond, and I probably shouldn't because it just gives him more of a platform. He made some comments about me during the motion for a new trial hearing, but lo and behold, last week, the cats come home to roost. Karma's a nasty thing sometimes, and we found out that there was a lawsuit that Mark Tinsley filed against FitzNews and Will Folks in connection with somebody who was accused of being a suspect in the Stephen Smith murder. And evidently, Fitz News published a photograph of Austin Stanley, published it, and they were notified immediately by the mother of this wrongfully accused suspect. Hey, that's not true. Certainly, SLED has never come out and said that they have a suspect. The only thing that I've ever learned is that there's 5 to 6 people that may have information that's relevant to how Stephen Smith died, which is a far cry from calling somebody a suspect.
So I think this lawsuit also represents just how wild and crazy the behind the scenes have gotten in the media world surrounding the Murdaugh case, and how vicious people have become trying to be first and trying to get the best scoop and trying to beat us, quote unquote. When I looked at the timeline for last week's episode of True Sunlight, it was not lost on me at all, Eric, that first of all, as soon as you started representing Sandy Smith is when Will started taking big shots at us, at all three of us. That drove him crazy, that he was not going to be in the know of that case. Weekend of the exhumation was when he came out with that big story in April that named 2 suspects that SLED has said that they have not named. And it was all weekend long. It was this whole thing that was like, what's going on in Stephen Smith? Why aren't you guys talking about these 2 suspects? And we're like, our sources aren't saying 2 suspects. So I don't know what's going on over there. But I also know this man, and I know that he gets very short-sighted when he's angry and short-sighted when he thinks that he is going to be beat at something.
Right after we left Fitz News, there was a story, one of many that we didn't, and I think this was philosophically an issue that we just didn't jive with Will on, because Mandy and I are journalists. We're trained to be cautious. We're trained to be right. We're trained, it's nothing is more important than being best, in my opinion. First is not, obviously, oh, it's great, I love it, but it's not your primary goal. So soon after we left Fitz,
being right is your primary goal.
Being right and being good, getting your message to people, writing in a way that resonates with people, that they can repeat. When you hear your own writing repeated and people are able to succinctly say the point that you wanted to make, you want to put it in a form that they're like, I get it. Okay, that's why that's bad, or that's why this is good. So that's the reward, right? But when we left Fitz News, there was a story. It was an egregious story, one that I don't know how you could prove is true, given that the person the story was about had not gotten a paternity test, but it was regarding the paternity of a little child who was raised to believe someone else was her father. And it was related to the Sandy Smith case. And the reason that we did not publish that story, and that became a thing that the trolls hooked onto, is it wasn't important to the case. We knew behind the scenes that SLED was aware of it, and they were checking into it to see if there was some sort of connection, that this police chief was involved. I don't mean to be so I'm not being very clear with the facts here. Yeah, I'm being very obtuse, but it's not worth getting into here. It's just that's an example of a story that we did not publish, and I think that was hard for Will to understand.
I always weigh, especially when it's a case that's been unsolved for that long, the information that I put out, is it worth it for the family to go through it? You have to weigh that, and is it going to help how much is it going to help the case versus how much is it going to hurt the family? And in this case, it wasn't going to help the case at all, and it was just going to do nothing but hurt the family and take the knife and twist it inside of them. And Sandy sent the messages that she sent to Will a couple of years ago when that happened, and I was overly disgusted at Will's response to Sandy and how he spoke to her, saying things like, you've been brainwashed by Liz and Mandy, you have no idea what you're talking about. To Sandy, this is how he spoke with Sandy, and
He was like, not Mandy, not Liz, me. I'm the one who
I'm
broke
the
the
one.
story. I'm the one who's been telling this story. And it's like,
And
who cares?
you
It's
should
not
talk to
about
me
that.
for all your tips. You should talk to me for all that blah 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 blah. And it just showed this horrible, evil, competitive. It's worse than competitive. It's just evil.
So last week, you know, without any announcement, the special referee Walt Tollison, who was appointed by Judge Daniel Hall in the receivership aspect of the Mallory Beach case, gave his ruling on the monies that were left from what the receiver collected from Alex Murdaugh's assets over the last year and a half. And there's been some attorney's fees paid to the receivers and their law firms. And there was about $1.7 million left. And in October, all of the victims of Alex Murdaugh's theft and former clients had the opportunity to petition and file to receive a portion of those monies. And not a lot of victims filed. I think there was about seven or maybe even less, six. And obviously, we filed on behalf of the Satterfields because the Satterfields had an existing judgment against Alex Murdaugh for $4.3 million, which coincidentally Bentley Price affirmed when Alex Murdaugh tried to vacate and attack that judgment. They then tried to appeal that decision from Judge Price, and they decided to withdraw it. So this judgment is good for 10 years. So we filed on behalf of the Satterfields. We filed on behalf of the Plyler sisters because they had money stolen from them that was ultimately repaid from stolen funds from others, but they lost the interest and use of those funds for a period of time. And so we thought we would recover some money on behalf of our clients. We knew that the lion's share would go to Alex's tort victims, meaning those boat victims. And with
All
that
right.
said,
Cups down,
ups
everyone.
down.